I'm ready to go.
Okay, so before we even get into Back to Us, I just wanted to go back to your history because you have a kind of interesting background. You come from a musical family and you guys had your own family band. What was that like? Because you were the lead singer, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So in growing up in Manchester, Georgia was it was very limited opportunity, and we were fortunate, my siblings and I, to have the opportunity to record. I'm sorry, to start our band and to have the support of our family. And we did our first recording ourselves with the software Cakewalk. And it still is software, but we were super excited to have that first opportunity to start recording and make, started recording the music that we made. And my first song was a song that I wrote. My first song on radio was a song I wrote called Hold On. I was like 12, 13 years old at that time. Pretty cool stuff. And we started our parents' church. My dad's pastor, educator, mother's educator, and we just heard the sound of music and followed the beat and the melodies.
So when I listen to your album, I know you've heard this before. I hear a lot of different people. I hear some Otis Redding. I hear some Johnnie Taylor. I hear some Otis Redding and some Sam Cooke and some other people too. But I was reading in your bio that when you were growing up, you guys had limited access to secular music. So
Oh
how
yeah,
did
we
you
didn't
get
have
that
any
sound?
access at all. The only person we heard, and it's interesting because often I was compared to Little Michael Jackson or James Brown, because when I would do the dance or whatever, I would be doing my feet like James Brown, and I had never seen James Brown.
Really?
Um, I'd never seen James Brown. I heard my dad would say, "My name is James Harris. This is not a James Brown show," because he was a kid. And but that's about it. It was until later when I was a teenager that, and I remember the first time ever even seeing, the first time I saw Michael Jackson and the Jackson Five was when they did the We Are the World, because that was considered, it had happened to be on a tape, on a videotape where there were other gospel artists. That's how we saw that. And while we had heard about Michael Jackson, Jackson Five, we had never seen it. So my inspiration, however, there was a lot of similarity in my expression and performances. The same with we saw Al Green when I was younger. That was the only artist who then was doing gospel. Only, I mean, does both now, but that was the only thing. And Aretha Franklin with her gospel portion of her concerts. Those were the only two mainstream R&B artists that we saw. Everybody else was gospel. The Winans, the gospel keynotes, Shirley Caesar. I mean, that's what we entertain ourselves with, and the choirs during that time.
So who are you inspired by, as a vocalist then? I mean, is there anyone that you've listened to that?
Oh yeah, I'm inspired by a lot of people, inclusive later when I did start listening to other genres, from country artists to R&B to rock and roll. I mean, Steven Tyler to Shirley Caesar. And when I listen, and my inspiration comes from different aspects of their performances, how they convey the messages. So, you know, there we call it interpretation of song or lyrics. That's what I look and listen to, and I think, they are some of the best that ever done it. Aretha Franklin, Tina Turner, Shirley Caesar, as I said, some of the quartet gospel artists like Willa Neal Johnson and the gospel keynotes, the violinaires. I mean, all of those artists, when it comes to performances, those performers were absolutely and continue to be an inspiration today.
How old were you when your family figured out, he needs to be the lead singer? They knew you had extraordinary talent.
Um, we didn't decide that way. It ended up being we would perform the brothers together, and all the brothers play an instrument. And our youngest sister, she plays as well, but she wasn't born then. Um, we I played drums and was sing. I had a brother playing keyboard and another brother playing guitar, and then I'm in the middle. Then a brother younger than me because he started to play drums as well, and then he started to play keys. But I would sing songs, and people start to request the song. That's how I became the lead singer.
Uh-huh. The people chose you. It wasn't
Yeah,
a
the
thing
people,
with hope.
right? It wasn't that, and so no one really felt any kind of way. I mean, we just enjoyed it. And it just kind of like it was me, and it was kind of I just kind of I was ushered into this space without without choosing it first, right? It chose
Okay.
me first, and I accepted the choice.
So now let's get to your solo career. What made you want to have a solo career, and why did you choose to do kind of an R&B country mix versus gospel music?
Yeah, I think well, I answer the first question, first part of the question first. So the choice to pursue a solo career had all to do with each of the brothers deciding to discover uh, the path that we each felt is best for us, right? Or we felt called to, rather. Let's just say that. And so one brother felt called more to do the producing, another one wanted to do more music and orchestration, etc. Another the legal side, another he does more his creative is more into writing books and authoring, etc. While we still all connect with music and we may sing like once a year at our parents' church still today. Um, Gospel music. Gospel has always and will always be, and I still do gospel music. But as far as a career in gospel, to answer the second part of the question, um, to me is genre sometimes, and unfortunately in the gospel is very, very, very myopic as relates to people's perspectives on what is gospel and what isn't gospel. Now we understand that a meaning of what the gospel is, as far as the preached word, is the good news, the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's the gospel as we hear it. But what unfortunately the folks in the gospel industry fail to understand, in my humble opinion, is that gospel in a broader perspective talk about good news is inclusive of love. It's a celebration of relationships. It's a celebration of our interaction as we were made to be. So for me to confine myself, and I'm like a very, very minority with that kind of broader perspective that as of today leads me to a space where I can express it in on a much larger platform, right? And seeing that this thing is nothing bad what I'm talking about, right? It's all about love. It's all about
Sure.
relationships and romance and all the greatness that we desire to be. And so, and then genre, I mean, country music genre, I mean, I think the storytelling, and we have confined ourselves, and I think folks like me and folks who are currently even on a larger platform, like the Beyoncés of the world, are now redefining the confined spaces of what we consider genre, right? As R&B once was considered race music, anything that Black people did was considered race music, and then R&B, Jerry Wexler, and all those guys who gave it that short title, the blues or rhythm and blues and soul music. But I consider myself a soul singer, and I sing what I feel, what are the lyrics that come to me to write, and I have the freedom of expression of those stories. And I love country music in the way that the story is told, and I feel that there's an opportunity for a soul singer from the South who is very well connected with the country roots in the true meaning and the its meaning, um, to express this, and I don't have to be confined to say, well, no, I can't do that because I'm a little soulful, so I can't do something that's country or write something that's country, but I can write whatever. And I think that and that's what this album, unfortunately, it seems to be at a time where, fortunate for me and my philosophy, that it's at a time where people are a lot more acceptable, and we're not confined to radio only, right? Where someone gets to choose, this doesn't, this does or doesn't fit this format, because if they say that and it's streaming and others discover it, there's no, necessarily one day, we know we have different curators for different genres, but people can discover it in one space, just click on it, and it's not like I have to tune to it or just put a mix in there and then it start throwing stuff. So that's that. So that's a long answer to your question.
That's a great answer. So, why did you record Back to Us in Nashville?
Well, first, I love Nashville. But Nashville to me has, and I've been going there since I was 12, 13 years old. My brothers and I performed there years ago at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center at the War Memorial. So we've been doing that for some time, and we fell in love. And Nashville has grown tremendously since just over the past 5 years or 6 years. And so, but one thing remains very true to Nashville. It has a plethora of amazing musicians. Their the drive to interpret in a specific way, and for what I was trying to do with this record, I knew that uh, you know this being an independent record, we can find really great studios and great musicians to work with. And the majority of it was recorded there, but we also did some. My brother did some at his studio work, and a couple of the features were done as well outside of Nashville.
So, the choice to cover Millionaire.
Yeah, the choice to cover Millionaire, I remember hearing Chris Stapleton sing that song first, and then I went back and I discovered that Solomon Burke was a second to record it, and the first to record it was the writer Kevin Welch. And the lyrics in and of itself, to me, it puts a different spin on when one think of millionaire, they only think of currency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's important in a very capitalistic society, which is nothing wrong with that. Um, but I think when we are immersed in capitalism, where we lose the humanness of humanity, it's important to take something that has one understanding. When you mention millionaire, to say that millionaire, it's almost like a metaphor. It's more so than it is literal, right? And comparing love and comparing that part of our humanity, um, that is part of our being, to me, it shows the richness of our own existence and what we should remind ourselves of, brings ourselves back to through center of thought. And all this other stuff is great, but it is all vanity. But the one thing that is absolute and part of our existence, right, or is love. And when you think about being rich and wealthy in love, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have love, you don't have nothing. Because you got to love yourself first, and then before you can love anybody else, you just like, I would compare it to being a zombie, just kind of walking around, empty, right? But
Sure.
when we discover love, something, and to say, in my discovery of the love within, loving myself, then I'm able to be in love with someone else, and that's what makes me a millionaire. And that's one of the things and I'm not sure what Kevin Welch was thinking, but my interpretation of his amazing composition and my ability to re-record that song had all to do with that perspective.
What's the story behind Lose My Religion?
Great question. So lose my religion is a colloquial expression in the South. Um, I'm from Georgia, as you are aware, and I would often hear probably frequently people say, "Boy, you gonna make me lose my religion," if they got upset with you, or you know, they were disappointed in something, you know, that they did that didn't turn out right. Oh, I'm gonna lose my religion, you know, whether it's playing a game or trying to, you know, create something, whatever. And so when I met Shannon Sanders, the co-writer of this song, he had the idea, and he and I started to talk about how we want to build out the song. And based on both of our Southern experience, we thought flipping it and talking about how we fall in love, take it as a homage to that Southern experience or expression that usually happens when something negative occurs, and flipping it and making it positive. So, and talk about when I find someone that I love, or you know, it's like, because losing my religion meaning being all kiltered, right? Which I talk about in the song. You know, it's kind of like everything that I thought that I wouldn't happen happens in a very positive way. You know, you make me lose everything, you know, that I thought about. Everything goes out the window, right? And into for something very positive. And so I thought, one, two reasons, being from the South and paying homage to that, but also it was kind of cool because, you know, I'm from a religious background, and not consider myself a religious person, but a spiritual, very spiritual person, and very keenly aware. But those two kind of like, it feels great as an artist to create this type of art.
So, what's the most personal song for you on that record?
Oh wow, that's a great question, because I think a lot of the songs are very personal to me in so many ways. When I write, I try to write either from a participated experience or an observed experience. And the participated experiences that are reflected in the record are Falling for You, which is a song that was written about, that was inspired by my relationship with my wife. During 2020, I wrote the song, and that's when everybody was kind of locked down, and either fell more in love or fell more out of love.
Yeah, sure.
Or wish you were in love, one of the three
Okay.
for some people. Um, but this one talks about that. So that's very personal to me. We turned to us because my wife and I actually were friends for 10 years. And I so the chorus or the hook says, "Time takes its time, spark to a fire, don't want to rush, making you mine," which is really written like a country song. It is a country song actually, but then from and we talk about from friends to being to going to crush, and from crush to love, and then we turn to us. The whole idea was the journey that she and I were on as friends, really good friends. I mean, I will admit, I don't think she had a crush on me, but I did on her, and only because, you know, I had just moved to the area, and I wasn't dating anyone, and you know, but some single people do, you know, you see what's the climate's like.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
But so I met her, but she was in a relationship at the time. I didn't know enough first met her, but anyway, fast forward, we just became really great friends without any agenda or anything. And actually, I ended up dating somebody else, and then we turned to us.
Okay. All right.
So those are really two personal songs, and the other things are inspired differently. Like First Sight. I mean, of course, there are elements of my reference to her, but it's really it's more of a general a song about how when we when that first experience, right? And so when I wrote that with Noah Gibbings, that's how I explain it. So I have this idea, and that's generally how I go into a writing session for my records, I usually lead the writing sessions, with the exception of what's the big truck coming? Or with the exception of Lose My Religion, Shannon had that idea, so I bought into it immediately, and we wrote the song. Driving around Nashville
Okay.
in his SUV. we were going to get some going to an Indian restaurant to get some Indian. He said, "You like Indian food?" I was like, "Yeah, man." He said, well, "I got this real cool spot."
Yeah.
And while driving around, we wrote the song. And by the time we got back to the studio, we had to basically laid the demonstration down on tape for us to remember. Yeah, the reference rather.
So Nashville was very inspirational.
Very inspirational in so many different ways. Just a music city. I just think is just bubbling. It's steaming. Everything around it is musical. You go to hotels. You go to Airbnbs. They really the culture there, and it has been like that. Ever since I can remember as a teenager. So yeah,
Have you
love it.
listened to Stax music? I mean, I know Stax is based in Memphis, but I'm just because I think about your voice. So you,
Yes, 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 yes. I've immersed myself in walking through the gallery, and one of my good friends, and I consider a mentor as well in the writing space and just in thought around the creative is Steve Cropper, who was at the helm of
yeah.
pretty much all of the Stack Records doing its day of making history.
Mm-hmm.
With from his signing Otis Redding when he told me the story how he and all of that really helps me. So when you hear this record, I sat with Steve I don't know for a few days, and the very first day I sat with him, he and I talked from we got there at 10 o'clock. He told me story after story till about 3 o'clock, and then we wrote song.
That's
And
awesome.
but that got me in the headspace of what it was like as a creator. I was able to go into that space and to really feel uh, my lyrical interpretation, my interpretation of lyrics, I should say, and also my indulging the lyrics of others like Kevin Welch and um, what's his name? Freddie. Well, it wasn't Freddie that wrote the song "Cry to Me." That Solomon Burke did.
Are there any songwriters that you look up to that you?
Oh yeah, very great. I love writing with a lot of different people from back from the traditional way of writing R&B for like Berry Gordy, Smokey Robinson in the Motown days, Steve Cropper, the Stax days to and today because he still writes and he and I have written some songs together. That thought process to writers like Shania Twain, everybody between on the gospel side, Donald Lawrence, Kirk Franklin, Taylor Swift, Beyonce is an amazing writer. It's interesting. A lot of people listen first a lot of times to the person's performance, and of course you hear it. For me, I've always thought of like, oh my god, and I look at the credits on online or on the through Google finding out, or on the streaming platform I said, oh, Beyonce wrote this too, and Taylor Swift wrote this, or and my late cousin was a great writer in gospel. I wrote a lot of Shirley Caesar's hit songs. Next in Line for Miracle, and I remember when we were little kids, and we would just be fascinated with knowing that he was a writer and producer. So those are the things that have inspired me and continue to inspire my writing. And today, and references like Lenny Kravitz and so on and so forth. Just amazing. He great interpreters, great producers of amazing creations.
So let's go to something else. The Arts Conservancy for Teens.
Yes. So the Arts Conservatory for Teens was started in, actually, we piloted this about 14 years ago. And we started, and I say we, because I assembled I came with the idea that I started when I was in undergraduate, and it became more when in graduate school, and then I met a couple of people along the way who've helped me develop my thoughts. And I had a vision to always have a space where there's accessibility and diversity before it became popular to talk about diversity. um, and in recent years, but I I had this idea, and then we launched this to bring students together and provide the accessibility that my siblings and I didn't necessarily have at a grand level, right? You know, everything that we did, my first drum set were buckets from my neighbor's backyard, and then my parents finally purchased a drum set from Sears.
Yeah,
And that's where our instruments, and then it was purchased initially without cymbals because we didn't realize, I guess, when ordering that it was the drums and you have to order the cymbals. Then it was on later till I
separate.
got cymbals from another music store locally, and and then our second then I got a second drum set, which is a pearl set from a music store in Columbus, Georgia. But anyway, I wanted to provide this accessibility to students so that they have access to quality arts programming without but taking a holistic approach to youth development, because I started to realize, because my background is sociology and psychology from an academic perspective, and I wanted to say, how do we use the arts as a catalyst for that holistic youth development, mentally, socially, and spiritually? And so we um, we work with licensed clinicians to work with them. We work with professional teaching artists. We engage other professionals to expose students who generally would not have that accessibility to be exposed, to understand the opportunities in the creative space for job opportunities, for career pursuits, whether it's through high school, whether it's through college or university or trade school or an apprenticeship. So we started in under-resourced neighborhoods and bringing that message, and we're positioning ourselves now that it can be licensed throughout the world in the next couple of years. So I hope that this record and interviews like the one today allow us to continue to amplify the opportunity that we're providing younger people and showing them there's a world of opportunity, right? Amplifying that, but most importantly, here's a pathway to the opportunity. And most importantly, I'm going to help you across the path to the opportunity, because we often say, well, boy, you know, there's a lot of opportunity out there. You can't, don't tell me there's no opportunity. But what we don't realize is that we can tell people about the opportunity, they can see the opportunity, but unless there is a bridge to get there, it is as if the opportunity never existed. And in some situations, and as most situations, there need to be mentorship across through that. So you understand the nuances of what needs to happen along the way in order to get the fullness out of that opportunity that's ahead. And that's what we do at the Arts Conservatory.
So, last question is, you finished your doctorate in organizational leadership. What are your plans with that?
Well, I wanted to be more of a voice in my space. My dissertation was on how the arts impact self-efficacy on teens in urban communities. And so what we're doing with Arts Conservatory for Teens, and as an artist who is reaching and growing for the highest level that I can become as a musician, as a music entertainer, I want to continue to leverage that platform and expanding these type opportunities. And so having both the music platform as an artist or creator and the academics, I feel it allows me, my voice, to be heard differently at the table, whether it's in at the collegiate level, which we're in the process of doing right now. And because I have a doctoral degree, I can have a voice at the table, and my voice is being heard to create a collegiate opportunity for students who generally would not know that there is a pathway to pursue both, right? And I knew that if I, as an artist, there's one hearing, right? But as an artist and an academician, there's another voice heard. And so I'm grateful that, and that's not for everybody, and that's just my personal preference.
Sure, sure.
So it's obviously it's not applicable to everybody, but I think that there's some truth to the two hearings, right? You know, and I think that it definitely, and then I speak not just from other people's research, but also my own, that is grounded in empirical evidence. So that's what that.
All
So that's a
right.
whole nother conversation.
Sure, sure. I just want to touch on it because I think that's amazing that you do have, both of those backgrounds working for you. So, okay, well, that was the gist of it. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Oh,
Um,
thank you for having me. I really
yes,
appreciate your taking the time to reach out. And your last name is Harris.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So
So,
then you're my cousin.
yeah, right, right. Probably
Yeah.
is somewhere down the line. So,
Now where are you located?
I'm in Detroit actually. So,
Oh wow, yeah. So you right in Motor City. Let me tell you really quickly. Added note to you to the notes. It was magical for me to go into the Motown Museum a few years ago and to stand and for the person, or I read it, I can't remember if somebody gave us a tour. Anyway, I learned that the place that I was standing, they were like, and right over there, that's where the Temptations were, and that's the hat in the picture, and they did My Girl on this. This is the piano. I can't explain it. I was telling someone, I said, you just have to go. And I said, I don't know if it's going to be the same for you or not, but for me, it's literally like I stepped in time. So I think, to a question you asked earlier, or statement you made rather, about, the album and stacks and all that. I think it was a combination of all of that it became part of me, that I was able to kind of re-engage that time by being in those spaces. And I tell my artists at the institution that we started, the Arts Conservatory, as well as if I'm speaking for master classes, which I do often, is that it's important to do the homework and understand the history, understand the foundation, because in order for us to go to fulfill our fullest potential, it's very important to have that foundational knowledge, right? It's the same as building anything, right? You got to have a solid foundation in education, whether formal or informal or institutional or not outside the institution, is important, whether you have a mentor, someone, or you read it. But it's very important to experience it, because I think that really helps to elevate your own personal experience and how you discover and express your own creations, right? And that's what certainly contributed. So I love Detroit. It has done a lot for my experience.
that's great to hear. Come on back.
I
Next
will.
time, the next time you'll be here, you'll be performing. So
Yes,
I
yes,
look
yes.
forward to
That's the
that.
plan. Thank you. That's the plan. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I'm gonna cut this out, but I'll have
Okay.
this up shortly, and I'll be listening.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for listening and having me on.
You're absolutely welcome. You take care.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
Bye now.